State 55 Africa is a premier pan-Africanist people's movement operating for the full integration of Africa by mass participation. The movement masters activities that addresses inequality of opportunity in governance and economic spheres of Africa. These include fair trade, climate change, migration resolutions, and peace-building efforts, promotion of cultural harmony, mass response to disasters, and crowdfund leveraged economic portfolios, among other areas. The movement has a rapidly growing footprint across the globe that helps resolve some of the deep-seated challenges of our time, including corruption. Sikwindi S. Situla, a politician and civil society activist based in Zambia, is president of State 55 Africa. Comrade Situla, a presidential campaign strategist and one-time Deputy Secretary General and Coordinator of International Affairs at the UPND, is former Southern Afrikan Representative of the Afro-Afrab NGO Forum. He is seen here in this video sharing his views and that of State 55 Africa on the recent xenophobic attacks that hit South Africa, which resulted in the fleeing of Nigerians out of that country.
The African community in South Africa does not own the means of production. What we should be talking about is how can we free Africa economically so that we can experience the greater good of a synerged or integrated economy that speaks to the true freedoms that we fundamentally fought for. Now, these are people who don't understand that. And unfortunately, it seems that history has somewhat been removed from their faces. And we are all left agonizing to see a fellow human being, an African for that matter, set ablaze another. What a shame. To see your own brother burning to death in such arson, you even kick them. It's barbaric. It's disturbing. It's disappointing. It's worrisome. It leaves so much to be desired. And therefore, the president of South Africa has got to show to the world that South Africa has got laws, that South Africa is capable of dealing with this surge of violence. He has got to demonstrate a sense of appreciation to what the rest of Africa did for South Africa, even when we do not want to bring a certain encumbrance on them for us to claim ownership of South Africa, which we don't own, because we only helped to liberate South Africa. So we are not saying that you have to pay us by any means possible. We are only saying repay Africa by respecting the lives of every African walking the soils of South Africa. In any case, we in State 55 do not even subscribe to these colonial borders. What we see and what we know and what concerns us is the very fact that every African is entitled to a piece of Africa. And that's what we must construct going forward. Let's construct an economy that speaks to the fact that we in Zambia are happy to go to Zimbabwe, to Swaziland, without feeling a sense of being a foreigner in that place. Because in essence, we are not. We are one people. Now, the problems that are in South Africa require that leaders in Africa, the AU, SADC, and many others, stop paying a deaf ear to the problems and the cries of many, and wait until it's a proper thoroughfare. they must be able to attend to this matter and stop it now before it spirals out of control. So we are calling on the UN to also step up their action, because what starts small will end up being a big problem that will be hard to reverse. And so we are surprised when this matter started a long time ago, and yet we hear our leaders, rather quiet and not confronting the matter. And we, the people of Africa, and representing the people, the masses of Africa, we demand that a lasting solution be found to the problems, of xenophobia in South Africa. If the South African government has problems and want to engage other governments to deal with that in resolution, they must attend to that. They must engage. And therefore, a conference of leaders and the people to bring sanity in that area is inescapable. It is also important for us to know that we have to teach our people about these cultural values that once held us so dear. Ubuntu. It is in South Africa where they say, umuntu, ngomuntu, ngabantu. So, without any fear of contradiction, the challenge in those acts seem to communicate inequality of opportunity and deprivation, and breeds deluge in outright criminality. Either ways, there is only one starting point, and that is condemnation of xenophobia in the strongest sense, and an appeal for restraint on both ends, meaning those that are reacting to this and those that are perpetrators of such violence. The problem in most African economies stems from the fact that we control so little amidst plenty, and masquerade to control what is remotely ours. The fight for resources in an economy well engendered by a white capital monopoly is simply a grope for the war in the dark. What every African must be invested in is to attend to the full economic liberation driven on unity or by unity, and not acts of disunity. Unity is the panacea to Africa's full independence and economic advancement. We often say we are independent. We are not independent until we unite. That's just the bottom line. Africa will never be independent until we get united. For us, that is when we will talk about independence. The kind of independence that we have today is a love affair that was constructed among leaders, to just reach a settlement without meaning. We do not control our economies as much as we think we do. And this is just the bottom line. We will keep, fussing and fighting and exchanging all sorts of, vehement statements. But the bottom line is, do we run our central bank? Can you employ your central bank governor without IMF and World Bank telling you you should go ahead or not? Can you print your money without them telling you you can't print your money? So that may sound simplistic, an approach or a confrontation, but it is real. When we had the IMF and World Bank, constructed, they had a purpose to move away from political, control to economic control. And now you will find that even within the space of the African free trade area, we must be careful not to create a situation where we syndicate markets for the same imperialist agenda that has come to construct investments in our countries. And we call that growth. Why? Because we want an investor. There must be a time when Africa will now start investing in other markets as well. So how do we reach that growth point? We can only get to that point if we unite. Simple. For Africa, it's unity. And therefore, we are very disturbed with the happenings, right there, in South Africa. So uncoordinated immigration into South Africa from the rest of Africa equally leads to pressure on South African resources and breeds general resentment for foreign nationals by South Africans. And that is understandable. But even when we do understand that, it's not justified that you should kill another person. It's just not justified. The main cause of the migration problem is the lack of coordinated multilateral labor agreements between South Africa and other African countries. Even that is still a matter of quick fix to a larger problem whose solution is a properly designed economic integration. We need a properly designed economic integration. That's the solution, a balanced one. So that even the means of production, when we talk about means of production, how many of us as Zambians have ever seen, copper? And yet we call ourselves a copper producing country. How many of us have ever seen diamond, gold? These are fundamental problems. So when are we going to start seeing these resources and benefiting from them as Africans? Amidst plenty, we have none. So these are the problems that have got to be dealt with. We have missed opportunities to deal with this problem. At South Africa's liberation point, South Africa should have identified migration as likely a major future problem as much as housing was identified. That would have led to a response in the development plan similar to the Black Economic Empowerment Program on creating capacity in the locals and regulating migrant labor to ensure surplus and deficit occupations are dealt with effectively. We therefore appeal for tolerance, calm and restraint, and suggest that a good campaign be mounted against acts of xenophobia in South Africa by all of us from wherever we are, without necessarily doing it with rancor and denigration. We need to be able to say, look, even at a community level, how do we mobilize ourselves, by sending messages to stop these attacks? Because what will happen in the end, you will hear that in your townships where you are, a South African has been attacked. You start having things like that, and things you don't want. Or, a Rwandese has been attacked, or a Zambian has been attacked. So we don't want that. And the only way we can do that is to educate one another on the benefits of staying together, of respecting one another, of working as one, and of advising those who are perpetrators of this crime to stay away, but also advising that the law takes its course, because I can imagine what is happening to the people who have lost their lives and properties and everything else. It's so appalling.
You've been watching and listening to Comrade Sikwindi Situla, President of State 55 Africa. To learn more about State 55, visit their official website at www.state55.org. That's www.state55.org. Thank you for watching, and please remember to share the video and subscribe to our channel. A luta continua.